Hi, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create a web banner inside a fantastic free program you can get online. It's actually an online only program, so the benefit of that is you can access it from anywhere where you've got a browser and internet connection. The name of this program is Pixlr, Pixlr, and the website is pixlr.com, and the program we're going to be using specifically is Pixlr Editor. So just click on Pixlr Editor when you come to the website and it opens up the editor. So I'm going to open up an image that we're going to be looking at. So what we're going to be doing is recreating this banner that I've created previously. As you can see, there's a few elements that are on this banner. We've got this nice background image, we've got this monitor, got this other blue and white arrow image, and we've got some text and these nice little breakout boxes on the left here. So we'll go through and do these one at a time. What you'll notice is the size of this is 851 by 315 pixels. That's actually the cover photo size for a Facebook cover photo or Facebook banner, whatever you want to call it. So I mean, you don't have to create banners that exact size, but just FYI, that's the size that Facebook uses for their cover photos. So we'll do File, New Image, and we'll call this just Web Banner, and it was 851 by 315 pixels. I like to have a transparent background. You'll notice there is transparency on this, and there it is. If we grab the bottom right hand corner, we can just pull out our window a little bit further, and that checker box all in the center is related to the fact that the background is transparent. That indicates transparency, just like on Photoshop. So we've got layers over on the side, just like Photoshop. We've got a history pane, which is really handy, a navigator, and you'll notice as I move around the canvas that the X and Y on the navigator, the values change to give me an indication of where I'm positioned on the canvas. So first things first, let's pull in this background image, and the way that we do that is a little bit different. In Photoshop we use the place function. In Pixlr we go to Layer, Open Images Layer, and that image is right there. And there we go. The image is quite large, so we can only see the top left hand corner of it. So we're going to transform it. Before I do, I'll just rename it to background, and then we'll go up to Edit, Free Transform or Control T, just like in Photoshop. And as we grab the corner, hold down your Shift key to keep it all in proportion, just like Photoshop. We want to make sure it's not stretched or squashed or anything like that. So we'll just hold down Shift, drag and make it smaller till it's about the size that we need. It's not quite the right size. There we go, that's pretty close. Yeah, that's looking pretty similar to down below, so we'll hit enter to save it how it is. And you'll notice that there's some transparency around the edges of this image, and then around each of these, the banner itself, there's a nice subtle drop shadow. It's not a regular drop shadow, it goes around all sides. A drop shadow usually doesn't go around all sides. I'll show you how we do that effect. And you'll notice also on the monitor that the drop shadow does not go all the way around the monitor, but it does go over the top. The monitor kind of sticks above the banner, and the shadow continues up around that. So I'll show you how we do that, but first of all we're going to create these nice rounded edges and the transparency, and the way that we do that is by adding a layer mask. And there's a little button over in our layers box over here, and you click on that, and that's for adding a layer mask. you'll notice that this completely white section has appeared next to our image and everything's gone transparent. So what we need to do is reveal the part of the image that we want to be able to see. And the way that we do that is by drawing rounded rectangles. So we go to our shapes or drawing tool, and it's got a square rectangle and a rounded rectangle tool. So it looks like it's about 20 pixels from the top and 5 pixels in on the sides. So we'll try and do that, having a look over at our navigator. So 5 in and 20 down. Let's see if we can manage that. Beautiful. So that would mean we need to go 310 down and 846. There we go, perfect. Now we've exactly created the same shape that we've got down here. So how do we add that shadow effect? Well, in Photoshop there's an FX button. Over in Pixlr it's got a layer styles button over in your layers box, and we can add, instead of a drop shadow, we're going to add an outer glow. And now to give it that effect, we're going to make the color black, and let's increase the size a little bit, and voila, we've created that nice shadow around all of the edges on our image. So I'll press OK, and let's pull in the monitor. So again, we go up to layer, open image as layer, find the computer monitor, there it is, and again that's pretty huge. I'm going to label it monitor. Very good idea to label all your layers, and make sure that monitor layer is selected. Control T to free transform, and let's try and make it a similar size to the one below it. Slightly smaller. There we go, that's about right. We'll put it up where we want it to go. It's over slightly, and that's about right, and press enter, and there we go. Now we obviously want this to appear out above and get rid of the white. So the way we do that is to grab the wand tool. It's called the magic wand tool in Photoshop, and you'll notice each of the tools, when you select them, a contextual menu, I guess it's not a menu, but you get some options related to that tool when you select it. Now tolerance is how many colors am I going to select, how much variance from the color that I select am I going to include in the selection. So a low tolerance means we're not going to include many colors besides what we click on. A high tolerance means we're going to include lots. So if I click on, just to show you, I'll click on the white bit there. If I press delete, it gets rid of the white bit around the edges, but if I get rid of this selection, press Control D, just like Photoshop, you'll notice there's these white bits around the edges that we don't really want. It's not very clean. So I'll just go back, Control Z to undo, and you'll notice there's also the history tool over on the right hand side. That is very helpful for going back and forwards within the history. And I'm going to put up the tolerance. Let's bump it, I don't know, 92, that'll do, and we'll see how we go. The reason why I'm bumping it so high is because we can go quite a ways in the color tolerance before it hits black. It's okay to take out some of the grays around the edge because the edge of the monitor is black. So we'll click on that, press delete, and Control D to deselect. There we go, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. It's fairly similar to the one below. Alright, so let's add that shadow around the top edge. In fact, we might just move it up slightly and across slightly, just so it's a bit similar to the one below. That's pretty good. Now the way that we do this, we'll need to create a new layer, and we need to create a selection around this monitor. Now you can do the same trick in Photoshop. If you hold down the control key and then click on the layer that you want to want as the basis for the selection, it selects the pixels that are on the layer that you clicked on when you held down control. So we'll go back and reselect the monitor. We'll call it monitor shadow, and make sure that that's selected, and we'll grab our paint bucket tool and we'll fill in that selection. Now it looks like we've just covered up that TV, which we have. Sorry, the monitor. So we've covered up that monitor now, but what we can do is rearrange the order of our layers. So we'll put that in behind our background, and there we go. It's still there. If we turn off these other layers, it's there. It's just behind the ones that are on top. Remember, the order of the layers indicate which layers are on top of each other. So now that it's behind, I can press Ctrl D, deselect that, and now I can add a layer style to that layer, just like the other one that we did. Make it 10 and change the color to black, exactly like the other one. Press OK, and there we go. We've got that nice drop shadow around the top edge of the monitor as well now. So perfect. Now let's create this other box, the white background on the monitor. That's really easy. We just need to draw a white rectangle. So we'll change from rounded rectangle to the regular rectangle tool. Let's change the fill color to a white. Press OK. So it's just up on the top bar there. We'll change the fill color, and now we'll just go right around the edges, right to the black edge, and I can tell you why that didn't work. It's because I was on the wrong layer. I need to select our monitor layer. Actually, this should probably be on its own layer. Let's go screen, background. So I've created a new layer, make sure it's selected, and I'll retry doing that. So go just up in the corner here. My mouse is not very accurate, which is not helpful. And just to the edges of the monitor. There we go. We've just filled the screen of the monitor. So it looks like the one below. Okay, so we need this arrow. I've sliced it out of another stock image that I have. And what we'll do is we'll actually open that image instead of adding it as a layer. It's right down here. There it is. There's the arrow. So I'll open that up. I'll make this 100% so we can see exactly what we're working with. And what we'll do is we'll crop this image and save it. We'll fix it up. So we'll crop it, and then we need to switch the direction of the arrow, so we'll flip the canvas horizontal. There we go, it's pointing the right way now. And we'll change the image size down to, say, I think it's about 30 pixels wide, and we constrain the proportion so it doesn't get squished or anything like that. Press OK, and that looks exactly how I want it. So I'll save this, go File, Save, and we'll save this as a JPEG, but 100% quality. The file size is quite small. We'll call it blue arrow. We'll call it blue white arrow, and press OK. Save that, and we can close this now. We don't need to save it again. And now we can add that new image that we created as an image layer. So we'll open it up, and there we go. Now we just need to place it in its right spot. Over just a little bit. There we go. Let's call it blue, white arrow. Alright, so let's create the phone number next to it. We just click right next to it with the text tool, which is the the type tool they call it in Pixlr, and we'll type in 976 5432. Now I happen to know that the font was Open Sans. Let's change the color. We'll try and select the color from down here if we can. That's not the color we want. Let's try again. No. Alright, let's just try and do this ourselves. Alright. It's pretty close. So let's just try and pick it from here. Maybe a bit darker. Maybe that side there. There we go, that'll do. Press OK and OK again, and now we can actually add a layer style to this as well to make it like a nice little outer glow. There we go, that's fairly similar to the one below. Okay, so we've done the screen and the phone number. Now let's add these breakout boxes on the left. You'll notice on the original that they've got some rounded corners only on the one side, and then it stops right at the edge of that mask that we created earlier. So what we need to do is draw a rectangle. Actually, we'll create a new layer for that, and have a look at our navigator. First of all, we've got to make this black, the fill black. Make sure you start well outside the canvas. So selecting the rounded rectangle tool, we'll start well outside. Let's start at 45, stretch it out and go down to about 95. There we go. It's pretty good. So we've made it 50 pixels in height, 45 to 95. And it's gone over the edge, so we need to use that mask tool again. So we'll add a mask to this layer, and we'll draw inside this mask. We just need to make sure we start above the 45. So let's select the rectangular tool again, because we're editing the mask at the moment. We can select what we're editing, so we're editing the mask. So we start above the 45 and make sure we go below the 90 and make sure we cover out the width as well. And there, we've just revealed it, and we've cut it off right at the edge of where we created that previous mask. Now all we need to do is we can bring up these layer settings, this little button there to toggle them on and off, and we can bring the opacity down. So it's a good friend of mine likes to do 45 for a lot of shadows and other things, so 45 looks pretty good. And we've basically created the text backgrounds that we wanted to. Let's call it text box. Fantastic. So just like Photoshop, we can make a copy of that by dragging that layer down to the new layer button, and we'll call this second one text box 2. And with that layer selected, and we select the move tool, we can use our arrows. So use the down arrow on your keyboard to position it how you want it. I only get a little bit closer than the one below it. Just do it slightly differently, and then we can make another copy of that one. Edit that, and we'll call it 3. And we can move that just by using the down arrow on our keyboard to get it exactly how we want it. That looks perfect. Alright, so let's create the text inside of it. Very straightforward. First one is professional. I'm fairly certain that the font is the Ubuntu font. So Ubuntu, not Ubuntu Lite, just regular Ubuntu. Yep. Change the color to white. Press OK, and then we can position it how we want to within the box. Let's try and get it kind of centered in that box. And that's pretty good there. Now we can add a layer style to this one. It has a little bit of an outer glow, but more like a light yellowy color. So what we'll do is we'll get the color that we want, and then we'll copy that color code. So Control C copies that. So copy that, press OK. Let's reduce this down a little bit so it's, there we go, perfect. And we'll create the next one. So service, change the color to white, press OK, OK, move it into the center, it's pretty close. Add a new layer style, outer glow, and when we go to color, we can just paste in that color, Control V for paste. Press OK, and bring the size down. It's very nice. And last of all, we have advice. Change the color, make it white. Okay, get it positioned in the middle. Pretty good. And add that outer glow again. Paste in that color that we had. Press OK. Perfect. Alright, so we're nearly done. We just need to add the IT and support services. So that's just text with some nice fancy effects. So we'll add IT. Now I know the font that I used for this was Bookman Old Style. There it is. And the size was pretty big. It was 100 and something. I don't know, something like that. Press OK. Actually, we'll edit that again, and we've got to change the color to white. And move it where we want it to be. So around about there. Looks good. And this one has a few styles. This one actually has a drop shadow. So we'll bring that down to maybe 3 and 3. That looks about right. It also has a bevel. It's very subtle, but it's there. So we'll bring that down and reduce the opacity of that. Down to say 45. Makes it nice and subtle. And then outer glow, put that same outer glow color that we had before, but we'll just reduce the size of this down a little bit and the opacity. Yeah, that's not too bad. Slightly different to what we have down below. The drop shadow is probably a little bit bigger by the look of it. That and the bevel might have been slightly bigger. Anyway, you can play around with the effects. So we'll press OK, and now similar thing with support services. Now this one was back to Open Sans, so we'll find that font, Open Sans. And the font size was definitely probably half that size. So 50 looks good. Support services. Make the color white. OK, and OK, and move it into position. That looks pretty good. Oh, over just slightly maybe. And now we'll add similar things to what we did before. So a bit of a drop shadow. So 2 and 2. It was 3 and 3, wasn't it? Bit of a bevel. It's 3 and 3. And a little bit of an outer glow. So we had that color, Control V to paste that color in. And let's bring this down. The bevel, the opacity was down a bit too, wasn't it? Alright, fantastic. So that's looking pretty good. Slightly different with that text, but that's okay. You can play around with the different effects. Do something that looks really nice. And there you have it. So from here you can save in different formats. What you really must do is save it as a layered Pixlr image. It's like a Photoshop file, but it's for Pixlr. Press OK on that and save that. That way you can edit layers and effects and all that kind of thing later on. If you save it in any of the regular formats, you won't be able to do that. So because this has some transparency, we want to save it in PNG instead of JPEG, so that this transparency shows up in our image. So save that, save, and we're done. There you go. I hope this has been useful for you, and hope you'll make lots of use of Pixlr. It's a fantastic tool. It's free and great alternative for doing basic image editing outside of Photoshop. Thanks for watching.